Is that yes? Interesting. Okay. Stand by. So it's entirely possible we're broadcasting, but I'm not sure. So we should just not say anything controversial while we wait for the countdown. But I also have to fix some video stuff. So um, all right, let me just do that. So just say hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Excellent. There you are. All right. I'm going to go back to the previous screen. All right. So we've got a we'll be starting shortly slide up. Um, you could probably open um, on your browser and see what the feed looks like. Um, I wonder how to do that. I could probably invite you somehow. Um, is that my link or does that show up as a public link that you can watch? Yep, there you are. It is a little meta, yes. Since we're going to be the entire. Um, all right, we'll start in 2 minutes, and then I'll probably just edit the top out when I post it. Oh, is there a delay? I think there is. Yeah, so that's going to be confusing because you're getting two feeds. You're getting our recording feed, and then you're getting the rebroadcast feed. Yeah, well, or unless you can, what comes after multitask? All right, 4:59. We're going to start in 60 seconds. I'll run the opening and then we'll riff on the script. I'll tell you when, but we're not going to do it more than once. All right. Here we go. Today, a special live edition of Future Forward.
As event organizers reorganize around a virtual world, we'll dig in and share what we've learned.
New platforms, new formats, and new ways to work from home as COVID 19 drives everyone from offices to worlds like this one.
I'm Alexis Cordato.
And I am Stephen Rosenbaum, and let us launch. So, this is live. Generally, we do live to tapes. It's a little different, but we thought that the topics and the changing nature of them warranted something live, and then we'll also, of course, make it available for broadcast. Um, so, what we want to do in this pod is literally dig in and talk about how people are shifting to virtual meetings, virtual conferences. We've got some tips. Both Alexa and I have run events in the last week. Alexa has more experience in running a virtual team than I do, so this is not as wildly disorienting for you as it is for others. Um, that being said, I think that we both have different experiences in terms of, for me, my team was all live and in person, including a class that I teach, and it all went virtual last week. So we'll talk about that, and then we will also dig into some of these terrific tips that we got from CMX Hub, which is listed as a comprehensive list of tips, tools, examples for event organizers during the coronavirus outbreak. Um, so that's what we're going to do. Maybe we should just start by talking about what we both have done in the last week. So I'm fascinated by that, and particularly the breakout session stuff, because while one of the things that we're going to find as we talk about tips and tricks is there's lots of platforms out there. They're really different. Some are webinar based, some are more one-on-one based. You know, Google has a suite of tools that people are using, but even within Google, there are different tools for different use cases and some platforms that are stronger than others. So we'll talk about that. My experience was um, I co-teach the accelerator program that the Media Lab runs called the Combine, and this is 7 or 8 teams of a couple people each in a room for 3 hours, essentially pitching. They have decks. There's a feedback session. It's a fairly organized and rather rigorous program, but there was no handbook for how to shift it from having everyone in a classroom to everyone online. And uh, just to be entirely honest, given that people were dealing with changes at NYU and school changes and travel and other things, um, I wasn't sure who was going to show up on Friday morning at 9 a.m. And I'm pleased to say that our entire cohort showed up. And we spent 3 hours with one break in the middle for a cup of coffee, um, working through essentially the same program that we did in the classroom, but with everyone participating via Zoom. Um, and I'm still thinking about what things we lost. We'll talk some about that when you go to virtual. There's definitely some things you lose, but there was also some things I think we gained, which was a little interesting. Um, so maybe let's start with. So you did your quarterly planning all virtually, and what's different?
One, like you're not so we're a distributed team, and so you actually do look forward to seeing folks in the office. And that was definitely lost. Like I'm a hugger, and so I just actually missed that that connection, right? That personal connection, that catch up, the sort of like eating lunch together, water cooler talk. But I'd say that you what you lose is sometimes like the body language, right? You kind of lose if someone animated about something, usually you can feel their body getting, we're on video now, so you can see, but we're social creatures and we can actually feel things, right? When we're sitting next to a person who's lost.
Yeah, um, I, I think not to be overly optimistic given the crisis that we're in the midst of. I think people were more engaged. I think it, at least from in a classroom, there's always, everyone has their laptop up, and there's always a sense that some people, so the nature, let me talk for a second about the nature of the combine. It is very a flip the classroom kind of thing where a lot of the value people get from it is seeing other people present their business and their startup evolving. And it requires them to be well prepared, but also to be engaged in providing useful feedback and criticism of the other teams. And there's as a teacher, there's always, that if there's 20 people in the room, what did you say? The phrase was no back no
No
back
back
row.
row.
Um, in virtual, there is no back row. I mean, everybody's up front and everyone's present. And in fact, one of the things that we said, we did a couple of things. So I should say the tricky thing about Zoom and why this is not a one size fits all solution is that there really are different, your experience as a free Zoom user signed up on the web is going to be different than someone that has a corporate account. And someone that has a corporate account might have turned on web recording, they might have turned on high quality audio, they might have turned on webinars. Those are all add-on features that we have access to through our NYU login. But I worry about saying, oh, the greatest part is the webinar tool, and then having someone go, where is that in my dashboard? I can't find it.
Right. The free version is actually pretty good. It's just it cuts off at 40 minutes. I think 40 minutes. And so what's interesting is I want to say it's the team at Basecamp maybe. There's one company that's distributed, and one of the things that they actually do is they stay on their free plan because it forces their meetings to actually stay shorter.
That's funny. Um, I wonder if that's the entire excuse or one of the excuses is also it's also free. Um, so we'll talk. So let's go through. Let's dig into the CMX Hub article that you found because I think it gives us a good place to start. Um,
Yeah, so
so it's on the screen for those of you who are watching this on video, but for our podcast audience, we'll read a little bit. Um, so, you know, we'll go through. And some of these you may disagree with as a listener or as a, yeah, as a co-host. I mean, so the number one, tips for canceling or rescheduling conferences or events, and you know, basically what this says is if you've got an event coming up in the next couple of months, it's a good chance you'll need to cancel. Even the strongest holdouts like South by Southwest were forced to cancel in the week before their big events. Um, and you know, I was running two events at South by this year. Um, I made a decision not to email my contacts at South by because I knew that they were struggling to make a decision, and I felt like they didn't need my input, honestly. And if they canceled, then we would cancel, and if they had said go forward, I would have asked my panelists to try and go forward. Um, they did cancel, and they canceled after the city of Austin essentially told them that it was too large a gathering, um, which was later than I think some people expected. Yeah. So I'm just going to blow through these and then we'll talk about them. They're saying, you know, here's some things to think about: credits versus refunds, reviewing your insurance options, reviewing vendor, venue, and sponsor contracts in terms of what commitments you've made that you can't get out of. Um, then they say be a leader, over communicate, and I think we'll talk about that for sure. And defer to your volunteers, which I think is interesting. Stay cool. Don't unnecessarily I don't know how to pronounce that word. Exacerbate. Yeah, yeah, fear, and then connect with local authorities, and manage cash flows. Pay vendors invoices as late as is reasonable. Um, so a lot of stuff canceled. Um, my experience, I had two big conferences coming up. Um, they both handled it differently. Um, the list is hotels, airfare, and then conference fees, right? Um, I, you know, what do you think of this no refunds under any condition policy? I just thought about startups I've run where, you know, every 2 weeks you had one of those sit down with the CFO and talk about payroll meetings. And, you know, you'd like to think that an organization that's as mature as any of these larger conferences has some cushion. But, you know, back of the envelope, you can imagine what if you had to refund, if you had to take the losses of all the commitments you made and pay all those bills and then refund all of the ticket sales, you know, you know, back of the envelope, it seems to me like it's millions and millions of dollars. Um, so the question is not, yeah. So I'll just give you, in our case, we had a big event coming up that was going to have an audience. It was a month away. Um, we were early, the Media Lab, in moving things to virtual, but despite that, the venue that we contracted essentially said, you're walking away from your deposit, and we'll take the other half and we'll defer it to next year. But, you know, for an educational institution, it's not an insignificant amount of money. Um, Yeah, no, I think that's right. And so we'll talk a little bit about our event. And so we made the decision. This is a demo day event, and demo day is the culmination of 12 weeks of extraordinary hard work. And I've been both in the management side of a demo day, and I've been on stage for a demo day, and it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't done it the the excitement, fear, trepidation of, are you dressed right? Are you how are you holding the microphone? Where's the screen going to be? Is there going to be a confidence monitor in front of you? Working in front of an audience tends to just increase the the excitement and the anticipation of a presenter. So we're now moving the demo day to entirely virtual. And so one of the things that I said to the team on Friday is, physically, when you think about being I've never been a professional performer. Well, I was a magician once, but not that. But when you think about singers, it's all about the diaphragm, right? It's about how you hold yourself. It's about how you. So all of a sudden, this stage presence that you imagined you're going to be is now replaced by sitting in a chair in front of a computer screen. It's very different, and I think, I mean, Stephen Colbert did Thursday Night last week without a studio audience, um, and it felt weird. Like, he's used to that energy. He's used to feeding off the crowd and making a joke and having people laugh, and being able to make a little, like when you take a performer and you don't have an audience, things change. So we're going to spend a lot of the next 3 weeks coaching our teams on how to push through in a virtual environment where they're in a little video box as opposed to being on a stage. But that's going to be a big experiment for us. Yeah. Yep. It's funny. I said this to the cohort on Friday. I said, you know, if you're like this on the screen, if you're like it's funny because I mean, I'm a video guy my whole career, and I'm a performer, so I'm used to thinking about how people, you know. I mean, the first thing I did was put a Media Lab logo on my wall because this is my office now. But yes, everyone should get a light. That's a good point. And I should remember which one you have, because it actually, I think I like yours better than mine. I think yours has a little bit warmer, I, the one with the ring. I have to figure out which one it was. All right, so let's move on to section two, tips on running virtual events. Um, uh, you you'd done this before, right? So this wasn't like the whole whiteboarding virtual thing. Like, you weren't like, oh my god, I have to learn this by Tuesday.